Wisconsin Revolution. For those unfamiliar, we are the offshoot of our revolution at the federal level, but for Wisconsin. We are independent of national, which allows us to focus on Wisconsin issues, which gives us, flexibility and freedom to kind of pursue projects that aren't necessarily, let's say that are more unique to Wisconsin specifically. The organization was founded in 2016 by Bernie Sanders, so those of you familiar with Bernie Sanders, we were founded on his platform to amplify, to advance, and to continue growing the movement around Sanders after his 2016 presidential run, which is actually was my political, enlightening moment in college. Bernie running kind of showed me like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we can have something better. Maybe we can have officials who speak to the issues that impact me directly, particularly healthcare. Medicare for all was kind of my most important issue at that point, knowing how expensive healthcare was, and being well aware that my 26th birthday was coming up and that soon I would need insurance for myself. Now, of course, that's not to say that progress hadn't been made in the past. If it weren't for the Affordable Care Act, I would have been kicked off my parents' insurance at 18. So we can thank, some progress that has been made, and we can thank Senator Tammy Baldwin in particular for getting pre-existing conditions protections. But it wasn't enough. There wasn't a public option, and healthcare in the United States is still an absolute mess. I don't know a single person who will tell you to your face like, oh boy, yeah, no, I love my health insurance provider. They love their doctors. They do not love their health insurance provider. And if you follow along on the industry, let's call it, administrative costs are skyrocketing. There's a ton of jobs in the healthcare industry, but it's not nurses and doctors that are benefiting from it. It's the back end people who are, pushing papers and kind of swelling the industry itself. And of course, all of those costs eventually get passed on to the consumer because they got to make their money as well. So a Medicare for all single payer system would of course change this. And we're not going to talk about that today because it's a completely different question, but that is our founding out of the Bernie platform and the Bernie movement. This is some of the fun stuff we've done over the years. I've had the pleasure of being able to meet with Senator Sanders multiple times now over the past decade-ish. I've been to his office in DC, been able to talk about some of these issues, express my support for him, and thank him really for, in a lot of ways, kind of being the godfather of this movement. If Bernie Sanders doesn't run for president in 2016, I think a ton of the progressive candidates and let's call it progress that we have seen since would not have come to fruition. He really did kind of change the game in a lot of ways. This includes, of course, strikes that have been going on in Wisconsin, trying to always support labor when we can. We believe that if we want to reshape our future, we have to reclaim our past. And as I mentioned earlier, Wisconsin is the birthplace of progressivism. We're the home of sewer socialism. We are the most forward-thinking state in the union, and it's time to reclaim that mantle because our present is based on our past and our future is determined by our present. So our Wisconsin Revolution helps to fight for that future. Those of you who remember way back when in 2024, I know it feels like it's been a decade since Trump won his second term, but after he won in November of 24, there was a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, and a lot of sadness across the country because many of us knew what was about to happen. Donald Trump and the Republican Party made it quite clear through Project 2025 some of the most disgusting, abhorrent, and brutal policies that they were planning on implementing. And at the same time, it really didn't feel like the Democratic Party had a response. They put all their eggs in the basket of, well, of course we're going to win. It's Donald Trump. He's a joke. And we didn't. So at that point, a lot of Americans were desperate for leadership. They were hungry for somebody to step up, and nobody really was. At which point, Bernie Sanders launched his Fighting Oligarchy tour. One of the first stops, actually, I believe it was the second stop on the tour, was in Wisconsin. He went to UW Parkside down in Kenosha. Friday, March 7th, so that was March 7th of last year. Some of you in this room might have been there. We had let's see if this will play.
It was in the overflow room.
So this is a video that I took of the event from the, I didn't know UW Parkside had like suites, like what you see at, like at Miller Park or at the Forum. Good for you, Parkside, but it gave me a great view of the entire facility, and we were able to shoot this picture. You can't tell me in a place like Kenosha, Wisconsin, that this isn't desperation and hunger for change. Clearly, Bernie Sanders is still immensely popular. You fill an auditorium like this on, a few days' notice. People of all demographics, all age ranges, right? We often hear that it's just the young people that want progressive change. I'm looking in this room and I see otherwise. I know that I'm not alone. I also know, if we're being brutally honest, that the older generations usually don't vote in our favor. Y'all are the exception to the rule, but that doesn't mean that we can't build out this movement with all of our collective strength together, because we all want the same goals and we have the same desires, not just for ourselves, but for our children, our grandchildren, in my case, my parents. All of these issues impact every single one of us, and the sooner we're able to recognize that and kind of work together towards finding proactive solutions, the sooner we're going to be able to get past this hurdle. So, as the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition expanded, obviously other elected officials got involved. Bernie was still turning out massive crowds everywhere, because of course he is, that's what Bernie Sanders does. And he noted that we're living in a moment where a handful of billionaires control the economic and political life of our entire country. A handful of people. There's a smidgen over 1,000 billionaires in the United States. Well, there's about 342 million people. 1,000 people control the lives of 342 million of us. That is undemocratic in every sense of the word. No matter your race, religion, gender identity, or status, no matter if you disagree with me on some things, I hope you see that this movement is not about partisan labels or purity tests. It's all about class solidarity. It always has been and always will be. The 1% and the rich are going to do what they can. It's not even really the 1%, it's the 0.00001%. Are going to do what they can to keep us fighting amongst ourselves. They're going to use culture war issues to divide and distract us, so they're able to continue picking our pockets as they continue to hoard more and more resources, as they continue to exploit more and more workers, and as the rest of us continue to then fall further and further behind. Which is why we founded, at that event with Bernie in Kenosha, the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition. Bernie was nice enough to give us a back room. We invited every organizer we knew in Wisconsin. Many of us have been working in this progressive fight for years at this point in time. On about 48 hours notice, we got almost 50 different organizers to show up to this, using Bernie as I hate to call it the bait, but like everybody was coming to see Bernie anyway, so then you say, hey, come 90 minutes early, let's try to expand on this. What can we do? How can we build this out together? And the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition was born. We built the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition around what we're calling the 21st Century Economic Justice Bill of Rights, and we're going to get to some of the Economic Justice Bill of Rights work that has already been done in Wisconsin that this is kind of building off of a little bit later in this presentation, and we will, of course, run through all 10 points. I just wanted to show off our nice little flyers that we've been passing out with our little QR codes to get you to the website. We will also show you that later in the presentation. So the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition is a grassroots movement uniting people and organizations against the billionaire takeover in our government. We believe in collective resistance, direct action, and building power from the ground up. We are going to create a government of, by, and for the people, rather than a government of, by, and for the corporations, the rich, the special interests, and the powerful individuals who have thus far been controlling every aspect of our lives. We're building a Wisconsin where working people have power, dignity, and opportunity. We believe that progress means investing in people, not billionaires, and creating a future where everyone has access to housing, healthcare, education, and a living wage, which we will also get to later in the presentation. This is about more than resistance. It's about building something better together, noting that not one candidate, not one policy, or not one idea will change the world. It's going to take all of us. It has to be a collective movement. But a movement is built up of thousands and thousands of singular moments that add up together to create the overwhelming tidal wave of power that we will eventually remind these rich and powerful individuals of the amount of power that we have. The working class is the engine of economic prosperity. We are the ones who are creating wealth and value, and unfortunately we do not receive the fruits of our labor. It just continues getting funneled up and up and up the economic pyramid. Thank you, Ronald Reagan, and trickle-down economics. So, the new Wisconsin idea. And we also completely did a rebrand of the website, which is why I wanted to do a nice little rebrand of the PowerPoint halfway through, getting off the old PowerPoint into the new PowerPoint. And I think the website is fantastic if anybody wants to check it out. We do have it later. I have a link, so I'll bring it up real quick. But can anybody tell me who this gentleman is on screen right here? It might be a little difficult to see, so I won't fault you if you can't. This guy right here. That is Fighting Bob LaFollette in 1924 on the steps of the Capitol after he got 17% of the national vote and won Wisconsin with his third-party presidential run under the Progressive Party label that he founded. 17% for a third-party candidate in a presidential run is unfathomable. Imagine that happening today.
What year was that?
This was 1924.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah, long time ago.
Years ago.
And in fact, fun fact, can anybody tell me how many third-party candidates have been elected to federal office in the last 50 years? Last 100 years even?
One.
I believe the answer is zero.
Zero.
I believe the answer is zero. And when I say third party, I of course don't mean, an independent who caucuses with the Democrats, because that would count Bernie Sanders. And I think there might be 1 or 2 House reps, but I know for a fact it's 0 senators. So third parties, unfortunately, can't win in the modern world, which means if we want to have a more progressive future, we have to have a more progressive party. And that comes down to primaries, which is why next Tuesday is so important and why last night in Michigan was so important. But again, we're going to continue the conversation right here. So that is fighting Bob LaFollette, who is, of course, not just a legend of Wisconsin, but a legend of progressivism. The ideas that he put forward over a century ago now, that, it's 2026, redefined an era of American electoral politics and redefined the role that government can play in regular people's lives. So for those unfamiliar, and I'll just read this one because I know it's going to be hard to read some off the screen. Does anybody know or have a general idea of what the Wisconsin idea is? Perhaps you've heard of it in passing. Those of you, if anybody in this room attended Madison, of course it came out of UW-Madison, and there's still a big focus on the UW campus around the Wisconsin idea, but it was born of necessity in an era where robber barons held vast swaths of wealth and power. In that time, the economy and the government were dominated by the rich, whose monopolies forced the working class towards poverty. The Wisconsin idea launched a progressive movement that transformed our state and inspired Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal and Economic Bill of Rights. Does that sound familiar?
Yep.
A handful of unfathomably rich robber barons controlling every aspect of our lives, industries dominated by monopolies, while working class people fell further and further behind. It's often attributed to Mark Twain, though I don't believe it's his quote. Once said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, right? We are seeing a lot of the same things that we saw back in the Gilded Age, though actually wealth inequality today is greater than it was back then. So in many ways it's worse. Wealth inequality today is also worse than it was during the French Revolution. We know how that ended. So despite the century in between, in 2026, much like in 1915, a cadre of billionaires are running our country, profiting off the backs of working people. Working families across Wisconsin are struggling to afford their basic necessities, while the rich get richer and richer. People like Elon Musk and Donald Trump setting themselves up to profit off the decimation of our federal government, quite literally putting our tax dollars into their own pockets. It's time for a new Wisconsin idea centered around economic justice for all Wisconsinites. All Wisconsinites. Today, the United States is wealthier than it has ever been. We are quite literally the richest country in the history of our species. However, income and investments are skewed dramatically towards the wealthy. Estimates have about 90% of the stock market, at least, being controlled by the top 10%. The higher you go up, the top 5%, top 1%, it's a vast majority of all wealth and resources going to these infinitely powerful individuals. 6 men by themselves hold more wealth than the bottom 50% of Americans combined. 300. We'll do 350 million just to make it even. That's what 175 million people that have less wealth than 6 men. Unfathomable. To reshape our future, we must reclaim our past. We, the undersigned organizations, of which Southeast Wisconsin Indivisible is a signed member, are forming a coalition to fight for a new Wisconsin idea to rebuild Wisconsin and fight back against the billionaire takeover of our government. So, at the time of a new Wisconsin idea emerging, the turn of the 20th century, a bold experiment in democratic governance, a belief that government should exist to improve people's lives and draw its wisdom from the people themselves. It was rooted in the partnership between the University of Wisconsin and the state's elected leaders. The idea held that research, expertise, and public service were inseparable. Scholars would help shape policy, leaders would be accountable to evidence and to the public good, and the benefits of progress would reach every community. It was the rare political philosophy that treated democracy as a living project, not a static institution, capable and, of course, needing to evolve as society evolved around it. This belief was that public institutions of higher learning owed their knowledge and education and expertise to their communities. If you are better educated or more knowledgeable than your neighbor, you owe it to them to give them the correct information to help them advance their lives. That is the point of living in a society. We help each other out, we protect one another. If you know the correct answer or the correct solution to something, if I'm out watering my grass or cutting my grass or something, and my neighbor doesn't know how to start his lawnmower, well, Wisconsin Nice says that it's my job to go over and show him how to start his lawnmower, right? That's what we do to look after one another. The Wisconsin idea was built on the belief that institutions of higher learning owed that knowledge to their community to create a better world for everyone, that we will lift all of us up through education, and that we wouldn't gatekeep this knowledge and information behind the doors of elite economic institutions. So, Wisconsin progressivism grew out of this foundation, a powerful movement that made Wisconsin, quote, a laboratory for reform. Leaders like Robert Fighting Bob LaFollette translated the Wisconsin idea into action, expanding worker protections, regulating railroads and utilities, breaking corporate monopolies, and making government more transparent and participatory. Progressivism in Wisconsin wasn't merely ideological, it was practical and fiercely democratic, proving that when policy is crafted through evidence, public engagement, and moral purpose, government can be both effective and trusted. Again, something we do not see today. I do not know many people who have much faith in the government, whether their party of choice is in office or not. I think a lot of that's by design, especially from the Republican perspective. It's really easy to convince people that government sucks and doesn't work and shouldn't be invested in when you are the one running the government, making it suck and be ineffective and not work. It's almost like protecting their job security by forcing the systems that they claim to hate to be terrible. The state became a national model for what people-centered governance could look like at that point in time. The New Deal, of course, took a lot of information from the Wisconsin idea. When the Great Depression demanded bold solutions, Wisconsin's progressive innovations became blueprints for national transformation. Many of the New Deal programs, including unemployment insurance, workers' comp, cooperative utilities, and social welfare systems, were born from, or at least inspired by, Wisconsin's policy experiments. The Wisconsin idea scaled up to the federal level, demonstrating its enduring power, rigorous research, and democratic accountability with a commitment to the common good. In a moment of national crisis, Wisconsin's approach showed that evidence-based reform could not only rebuild an economy, it could restore public faith and expand the promise of America's democracy. Which leads to a new vision demand. For those, I can imagine quite a few of you were in this audience as well. This is from No Kings Milwaukee. Indivisible helped organize this event, as did we. And I was lucky enough to be asked to give the first speech at the first No Kings Milwaukee, where we talked about a lot of these same concepts. Today, as the country confronts profound political division, economic inequality, and eroding trust in institutions, the Wisconsin idea is re-emerging as a guidepost, a North Star for renewal. A new generation of leaders, organizers, students, and public servants are reclaiming its core principles, that government should be rooted in evidence, it should be rooted in policy shaped by public input, and it should be rooted in progress aimed at advancing the common good. The idea is no longer just an academic concept or historical artifact. It is a fluid movement in an age hungry for reason, accountability, and shared purpose. The Wisconsin idea offers a path forward, a politics that works for people, not the privileged few, and a democracy that once again feels like the public project we have built together going back 250 years. We're going to create a state that works for the workers, not for the billionaires. Those unfamiliar, because you might not be able to see it as well, this is a picture from the back of the No King stage when my good friend John Nichols received a call from one Senator Bernie Sanders, who then spoke to the audience over the microphone. It was very, very amateur-ish, but it was our mistake for not nailing the tech, but tech is going to be inconsistent, of course, whenever you need it to be working. So, the new Wisconsin idea, taking all of those concepts we just discussed, all of those principles, that core vision that was laid out over 100 years ago, and giving it a fresh coat of paint, twisting it, molding it, bending it into the modern version that it needs to be to help reclaim the victories that have been taken away from us. The new Wisconsin idea is our philosophy that a state's economy and policies must reflect evidence, reason, and public input. A commitment to continually moving society forward in benefit of the common good and not the extremely privileged. And we are grounding it in 10 foundational rights owed to all who call Wisconsin home. Together, these form the Wisconsin Economic Justice Bill of Rights, 21st Century Economic Justice Bill of Rights, however you want to refer to it. We're really trying to focus on kind of the messaging and narrative aspect of this. As we have seen over the past decade, particularly with younger voters, short videos and sound bites are what really win people over. You get one sentence or one phrase or one motto, you say that over and over and over again. that motto almost becomes larger than the words that make it up. It represents an idea or something greater than the 3, 4, 5 words together. And let's be brutally honest, 21st Century Economic Justice Bill of Rights is a little bit of a mouthful. If we're marching down the street and chanting, it's going to be really hard to be like, what do we need? A 21st Century Economic Justice Bill of Rights. When do we need it? Now, right? Like, we got to try to find a way to take that idea, reframe it in a way that Wisconsinites recognize and that has positive connotations, and then, once simplified, blast it out to the world and make that rallying cry something bigger than the 3 words that encompass it. And that is the new Wisconsin idea. So, the 10 foundational rights that we are referring to. Right number 1, jobs. We will fight for your right to a job that provides dignity at work and pays a living wage. Number 2, education. Your right to adequately funded public education and affordable, accessible child care. Number 3, unions. You have a right to join a union, public or private, and you have a right to collectively bargain. Number 4, health care. You have a right to affordable, accessible, high quality, and comprehensive health care. Again, this is the richest country in the history of our species. If we cannot take care of the health of our own people, what are we doing? What other purpose does a government have if not to protect its citizens? We can't even go to the doctor without being, a lot of people can't go to the doctor without facing bankruptcy, a cancer diagnosis, a car accident that's not even your fault. And decades and decades and decades of hard work, gone, wiped down the drain. You saved a ton of money by doing everything that the system told you to do. You went and got a college degree, you worked your butt off, you saved, you maybe cut down on spending when you wanted to go on that second vacation a year, you decided, you know what? My daughter is 14, she's going to be going to school pretty soon, I want to save up for her. None of that matters. All of a sudden, all the money you put away from them, gone, and it might not even be your own fault because of America's fundamentally broken healthcare system. Number 5, the environment. You have a right to a clean, sustainable environment and a healthy planet. I feel like I don't need to riff on that because as important as healthcare is, we don't have clean air and clean water, none of this matters. Economies don't exist. Green Bay Packers football on Sundays don't exist. Like whatever your hobby or passion might be, whatever you do for fun, whatever you enjoy, none of that will matter if we do not have a habitable planet. Okay? Biodiversity collapses, none of this will matter if we don't have ecosystems capable of sustaining life. Number 6, infrastructure. You have a right to decent, sustainable community infrastructure, including safe, affordable housing, transportation, and broadband access. One that doesn't get talked about enough. The internet should be a public utility. At this point in time, you cannot survive in a modern world without the internet. Yep. The infrastructure has been in place. In fact, we paid for the infrastructure with our public tax dollars. Why we aren't guaranteed access to this and why we're still being charged sometimes hundreds of dollars a month for access to the internet is beyond me. Actually, that's not true. I know exactly why. It's because a handful of corporations who completely dominate the industry. I could name 2 or 3 of them right now, and I guarantee everyone in here I would get their internet service provider if I just picked these 2 or 3 companies. Want to continue increasing their stock prices and want to continue giving their stockholders buybacks. So, number 7, the economy. You have a right to equitable access to capital, investments, financial institutions, and retirement. Number 8, justice. You have a right to a fair, restorative, and equitable justice system. Number 9, recreation. You have a right to recreation and participation in community and civic life. And number 10, liberty. You have a right to self-determination and freedom from oppression regardless of documentation status. Now these 10 rights, again in the wealthiest country in the history of our species, should be guaranteed to all people residing within the United States of America. And we're going to fight for that. This is not meant to be policy, right? There are people significantly smarter than me who can sit down and hash this into actual legislation capable of being passed. This is meant to be a North Star, a roadmap, dictating what we believe we deserve and demanding what we, as the working class who drive all aspects of America's economy, deserve. Our communities deserve this. We make up the United States. We, the people, deserve these rights. So, the 21st Century Economic Justice Bill of Rights, if we were to take one paragraph to kind of explain our whole argument, it's that we believe every Wisconsinite, regardless of income, race, religion, gender, country of origin, or sexual orientation, has the right to the basic necessities of life. Our state can lead the nation in fighting for economic justice through living wages, high-quality and affordable healthcare, world-class education, affordable housing for all, a clean environment, and a secure retirement. Wisconsinites deserve a state that works for them, not for the corporations and the billionaire class. We're not going to go through all of this, but this is basically the letter that organizations and individuals who agreed with this argument signed on to. Needless to say, it touches on some of the same arguments that we just made, U.S. being wealthier than it's ever been, but income and investments are skewed dramatically to the wealthy. The rich are highly undertaxed while they're receiving the same benefits that we all are as they continue mercilessly exploiting the 99.999% of us. Now, I mentioned that we're going to touch on Wisconsin kind of covering an economic justice bill of rights a little bit more. In 2023 and in 2025, the Assembly put forth joint resolutions co-sponsored by, in 23, it was Representative Francesca Hong and Representative Christina Sandher from the Green Bay area. In 2025, I see it was introduced by Reps. Hong, Tenorio, Clancy, Cruz, Madison, Phelps, Vining, Moore, Mukunde, DeSchmidt, Snodgrass, Maurice, Bear, Stroud, Neubauer, Heisel, Jors, Stubbs, Billings, Sheehan, McCarville, Subic, Rowe, Fitzgerald, Brown, Udell, DeSanto, Anderson, Snicky, Johnson, and Dennis Jacobson, co-sponsored by Senators Larson, Smith, Hesselbein, Royce, Spreitzer, and Johnson, which means we went from 2 to whatever I just said. I'm not going to go back and count them all, but that's more than 2. I'm not a mathematician. I do know that that is more than 2. We are gaining support around this, but it ain't enough. It ain't enough. There are still more Democrats in the state who aren't signed on to this, and as you can probably imagine, Republicans won't sign on to this, which means we have to win elections. I hate to get it back to that, but of course elections determine how much power and leverage we have at the state level. If we're not able to win some of these elections back, we're not going to be able to do anything to change this. I also included a link right here that I can send to anybody of this resolution if they were interested in going over it, but as you can see, all 10 of them closely mirror the Economic Justice Bill of Rights that we are proposing. It's essentially the same language. There are a couple of national organizations as well, including Progressive Democrats of America, through their executive director, Alan Minsky, and Professor Emeritus of Social Justice, Harvey J. Kay from UW Green Bay. Some of you might be familiar with his work. Both great friends of mine, and Harvey is the expert on FDR. So we are trying to, again, reshape our future by reclaiming our past. Come on. Little fun story to include as well. If anybody saw this on the news, this is a picture from the Green Bay City Council. I believe it was last week, Tuesday, where they approved a resolution with a vote of 9-3 proclaiming the city's commitment to what it calls, quote, an economic and social bill of rights. The resolution calls on the city to prioritize residents' rights to clean water, housing, transportation, sustainable infrastructure, and other aspects of life necessary to thrive. It was put forth by a really good friend of mine, John Stroud, the gentleman you can see right there, who is both brilliant and somehow, despite being an absolutely brilliant leader, he is an even better person. I'm very proud to be able to call John a friend. The author and sponsor of the resolution was Alder John Shelton, as I just mentioned, co-sponsored by Jim Hutchinson, Joey Presley, and Alder Alyssa Prophet of District 7 as well. The resolution is rooted in the founding principles of American democracy. The founders of the United States built our nation on the simple promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Everybody's heard those. Everybody's heard that phrase. Everybody's heard that line. As we consider how to prioritize our resources as a city over the next few years, having a set of commitments, again a North Star, if you will, to lead our work is essential. I'm proud to know that as a council we will be committed to working for these commitments, Shelton said. Not policy, roadmap. These are our expectations, these are our demands, this is what we need to see, and it's about organizing around these core beliefs, organizing around this core vision, taking the many different factions we have of Wisconsinites, because often politics is treated as a binary line, right? You got the right and you got the left, and everybody falls somewhere in between. That's bullshit, all right? I'm telling you all right now, that is bullshit. Politics is a sphere, there is people all over this sphere. You go knock a few doors, you're going to find people that you wouldn't believe what they self-identify as, and then you wouldn't believe what they say about certain issues, because it does not fit nicely and neatly into the little bubbles that a lot of let's say the parties and also the powerful want us to be looking at, because they want to create these labels that they can then use to divide us. Something as simple as Republican versus Democrat, something as simple as progressive versus MAGA. Are there ideological differences? 100%. I'm not saying they're not. What I am saying is that because you identify as one label or you believe one label for the majority of these issues, it doesn't mean you aren't going to find other issues where you agree with someone else. A great example of this would be the data center moratoriums, which are a 90-10 issue, right? It's does everybody get a free puppy or does everybody get diarrhea? Everybody's gonna choose the free puppy. We all want, like, the only people who benefit from these hyperscale data centers are the tech giants and the coastal elites who are funding them and will be using them to, of course, steal our water, hoard our energy, jacking up the costs of energy for all Wisconsinites, so that they can harness our data, sell it back to advertisers, and then train their AI platforms to eventually take our jobs. This is economic suicide. The vast majority of Wisconsinites and people in general recognize this, and they hate the hyperscale data centers for it. I am trying to make sure I'm careful with my wording. It's the hyperscale data centers in particular. You do need to have data center servers and everything, but of course the internet's worked pretty good for 25, 30 years at this point in time. Why are we doubling our data center production all of a sudden overnight? Because they're trying to build these hyperscale massive centers like the one in Port Washington, the one in Wisconsin Rapids, that take 90 seconds to drive past them when you're going 70 miles an hour on the highway. Think about what we could do with that much land, with that much space, and with the amount of resources that are going into these projects. So, this was my last slide on the Green Bay thing. Whoops. The council president, Alyssa Prophet, noted that the resolution reflects an ongoing commitment to progress and collaboration, stating that Green Bay has made tremendous strides in recent years in many of these facets of life. However, there is always work to be done. The Economic and Social Bill of Rights highlights the commitment of our council not only to strive for improvements in the identified categories, but also to collaborate with county, state, and federal partners on legislation that will continue to drive tangible progress for our neighbors here in Green Bay. The resolution passed the Protection and Policy Committee on July 13th, following testimony from several community supporters, and it also commemorates the 250-year promise of American democracy, according to the council. Thomas Paine wrote numerous books on this, if you're familiar with Thomas Paine, The Promise of America. And Harvey Kay actually has written books on Thomas Paine. So if you want to go back each step of the way, the promise of America was rooted in a lot of these fundamental beliefs. And we have kind of strayed away from that promise, and we're hoping, starting in Wisconsin, again, the most forward-thinking state in the union, to reclaim those promises. So this is our mission statement. It's just an extension of the 10 points we mentioned earlier, jumping into individual, a little bit more policy focused on this, but more so also giving background information where we, of course, cite all of the data that is showcasing this. This is more for elected officials that we're trying to get to buy into this, to support this, to recognize that this is the vision that Wisconsin voters support. This is a vision that you should, as our representatives, support because we believe in it. Of course, it goes into all 10 of them. We're calling on officials to join us in fighting for this new Wisconsin idea. We have the website here. Let's see if it will load for me. You'll recognize some images because I took them directly off the website. And our 10 promises, as well as the organizations and businesses, elected officials, and volunteers that we have that have joined on to the movement. What is full screen? I believe that's 11. Oh, that's not it. There we go. So, in summary for the new Wisconsin Idea 2026, heading towards a potential Democratic trifecta in 2026, we don't have a clear political program. We don't have a clear umbrella strategy, I would say, that kind of defines the demands for this upcoming election. We have individual candidates that are running all over the state for assembly, for senate, for governor, but there is no comprehensive vision akin to what a Project 2025 was for the Republican Party. I think voters want to see long-term strategy. I think one of the great flaws, and I'll use a capitalist reference here, every quarter, the CEO only cares about profits for this quarter, right? You could promise them, hey, I have this strategy, we're going to have a couple of down quarters, but we're going to dominate the market for the next 10 years. They don't give a shit, because it's not about the next 10 years. It's about how can we make the most amount of money this quarter? How can I get my stocks as valuable as I can at this point in time? I think we need to have a collective understanding that long-term strategy makes it easier to implement the things we all agree with and the things that we all want done. So what we're doing through the coalition, made up of many of the state's strongest progressive organizations built around the New Wisconsin Idea, is a mandate to provide our agenda to elected leaders and candidates. The Fighting Oligarchy Coalition would like to push candidates to adopt the New Wisconsin Idea and pass it in January of 27. Of course, this is under the assumption that we win back the state, so we got to go win some elections. The goal is to build a statewide movement for economic justice, using the Wisconsin Idea as our rallying cry and pressuring candidates to adopt it as soon as possible. Phase 1 is prep. This has already been done, but this is creating social content for any of the social media posts, prepping the website, timeline, steering committee, etc. Launching events and press conferences with public sign-ons, op-eds, elected official sign-ons, and toolkits. Phase 3, which is what we're in right now, is organize. The New Wisconsin Idea community events and tour across the state, web events, communications, and social media pushes. Then we want to continue with the activities phase, which is events, press conferences, online forums, distributed New Wisconsin Idea articles, videos, policy agendas, and of course, getting elected officials to sign on. This is a little bit of the tech end for the backside that we're not going to touch on for a very long time, but or that we're not going to touch on for too long. But we have built a little bit of a GIS organizational directory into the website so that we have one central hub for information and coalition engagement, labeled by the organization, what they focus on. For example, are you an environmental group? Are you a healthcare group? Are you an immigration group, etc.? Contact information so other partner organizations can reach out to them. The argument being that too often, progressive organizations are siloed from one another. Everybody wants their grant writing proposals to look as good as possible, so you want to do every little thing you can, but really it's comparative advantage. If you guys are really good at text banking and I'm really good at phone banking, why should I do a little bit of text banking just to say that I did when it's going to be incredibly inefficient? When I can send my text bankers to you, you can send your phone bankers to me, and we'll all just do the thing that we're good at. Same concept, but with all of the myriad forces in the progressive movement kind of marching in the same direction. We don't have to march to the same beat. That's very difficult to do, but we do need to be moving in the same direction because, again, the only advantage we have is our numbers. We're never going to out-fundraise or out-network the billionaires. It's mathematically impossible. 6 men have more wealth than the bottom half of Americans combined. But we can out-organize them, and we can outwork them because we outnumber them 1,000,000 to 1. As a 90s kid, I love to use the Bug's Life reference. If anybody's seen that movie, when the ants and the grasshoppers, and the grasshopper is yelling at the other grasshopper, and he's like, you let one of these ants stand up to you, they all stand up to you. So, beat his ass now so that the rest of them learn their place. Same concept. We've had our asses beat for a long time. The rich and powerful have been grinding us down for decades. But we still have each other. We are still standing, and we will continue to get back up again as long as we have our neighbors and our community standing in solidarity with us shoulder to shoulder. So we have nearly 175 organizations signed on, all within the outreach database to make it easy for partner organizations to find X, Y, or Z organization if they need to, including individual allies and friends contact database. Use an example for May Day. Both States always does the fabulous May Day March. If another organization wants to do a May Day March or something, no, you're not going to organize your own. You're going to come to this event that's already been going on for 20 years at this point. You're going to support your friends and allies who are doing the thing and have been doing the thing for a long time. And then when it's your turn for your special event or day, we will support you. It sounds, transactional. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. But in a lot of ways, most aspects of life are transactional. You just don't have to use money as the currency. A marriage is transactional. I will love you for the rest of time if you will love me for the rest of time. You're just using love as the currency instead of money. And then I also want to give a shout out to our good friends at Wisconsin Resist who helped build the calendar. They do a fabulous job of tracking every event going on across the state. If you need to find something in your neck of the woods, or you got a random Saturday where you're just like, you know what, I want to go and do something. What's going on and out here? Wisconsin Resist will be able to tell you that. They just do such a good job. I can't highlight them enough. Threw in some images from some of our fun events recently. I also spoke at the Hands Off event, when was that, last April maybe? In support of, actually the previous April, that would have been April of 25.
The Hands Off was April 5th of 2025.
Of 25, yeah. So April of 25 in support of Judge Dugan. But again, solidarity, right? 90% of solidarity is showing up. You don't always have to give a speech. You don't always have to be the leader. Sometimes you just got to be a body, because that is our advantage. Ooh, I skipped a picture. interesting. Which one is that? Oh, okay, so that's No Kings again. No Kings again. I don't remember what event this was, but I'm wearing a different shirt, so it's not hands off. But something to do with Donald Trump's attack on democracy, which of course happen every week. So it could have been many different events. This was, we had Beto O'Rourke, I've been talking about too much. Come down to Milwaukee to do an event in conjunction with Mandela and Barnes last year as well, a turnout the vote effort, and of course, as you mentioned earlier, it's imperative that we vote. Not a lot of people vote, particularly young people. Gen Z and millennials are already the largest voting demographic in the country, but we don't vote like it. We like to complain, but we don't vote. Some I'm working on, we'll get to that later. We had, numerous other events, of course. It's always fun. Which one is this? Oh, I think this was the No Kings March as well. So, drone video footage. It took 2 minutes and 34 seconds for the entire march to get past the drone. That's how many people we had out there.
Anybody there?
Which one was it?
This was No Kings 2. So the second No Kings last year in October. The first one was June. This was the October one.
Right, okay, yeah. Hands off was off.
Did you see?
Was it No Kings yet? You were there.
And we lost our spots. And then I also wanted quick, this is not directly related to
But now is a good time to keep going, yeah.
you know what, we're going to do it this way because I lost how to make it big. So, for those of you who might be familiar with this, I also want to give a shout out to Great Lakes Neighbors United. Did anybody see this video? This was over the winter.
Where is the video?
Port Washington, Common Council meeting,
When they arrested the.
discussing the data center in Port Washington.
Yeah, they arrested her for speeding.
When a 42-year-old mother of 3, who was there to speak on behalf of her community, was arrested, thrown on the ground, and dragged out by Port Washington police, at the behest of the Common Council, who was upset with her for criticizing their backdoor dealings and negotiations that led to this data center against the public's wishes. This video has received millions and millions of views. It was on ABC, it was on NBC. I actually happened to report it. I was standing right there, and as soon as it started, I was like, we know where this is going. They've done it before. They're going to do it again. But this type of event showcases to people all across the country what's going on in communities that you might not be familiar with, but that are having the same problems that you're having. Whether it's your Common Council doing things that the public doesn't want behind closed doors, not being open and transparent about it, and then eventually using the force of the state to kind of silence you. I think that's a problem that Americans across the country are familiar with. So, secondary project that the FOC is also working on, that we are as well, and that kind of falls under the New Wisconsin Idea argument, is what we're calling 20 for 26, a living wage for all. This is the Living Wage for Wisconsin Wage Reformation Project. This actually has sign-on from 43 of the 49 Democrats at the state level. If we are able to win back the legislature next cycle, this will be passed immediately. We are going to increase the minimum wage in the state of Wisconsin to $15, increasing up to $20 over the next couple of years, getting a small business exemption for the first few years, because Wisconsin's minimum wage right now is actually still $7.25, which is the federal minimum wage. The tipped minimum wage is $2.33 an hour. Now, we have seen, let me also clarify this, this isn't necessarily about just the minimum wage, right? This is not poverty porn. This is recognizing that wages equate leverage. And the more leverage the workers have against the interests of capital, the more we as the working force can benefit from the fruits of our labor. Amenities and benefits that we have taken for granted for hundreds of years were fought for by our parents and our grandparents, and they've been stripped away systemically over the past 4 to 5 decades. We're going to fight to get that power back, because really this is about power that we have in the workforce. There have been we've done some fun events at the Capitol. Again, we have lawmakers all across the state signed on to this. Oh, okay, thanks you too. And to wrap up then, first of all, solidarity with everyone in this room, because solidarity is all we have. All we have is one another. We cannot out-fundraise or out-network billionaires. Not possible. We outnumber them 1,000,000 to 1. I cannot hammer that point home enough. Our numbers are our strength. Our numbers are our advantage. And we have to be doing a better job of organizing these numbers, harnessing the energy that we all have and the demand we share for a just and more equitable state, directing it in the right direction, and getting it done. This starts by winning elections, of course, that has to happen, but it also happens by pressuring elected officials currently in office to support these policies. Things that are, you go talk to your friends, your neighbors, you talk to the guy, the mom and dad next to you at your kids' swim lessons or something, you're going to hear a lot of the same issues are impacting people day after day after day. Rising costs, whether it's grocery costs or rent, cost of healthcare, cost of goods and services have skyrocketed over the past 2 years. Corporate profits are expected to be, the last report had it about 47% this year. 47% higher this year in 2026 than in 2025 for corporate profits across the board. They're cutting jobs, they're cutting expenses, but they are still raking in the money. And until we are able to give more power and leverage to us both as workers and as consumers, they are going to keep pushing for more and for more and for more. You give a mouse a cookie, they're going to ask for a glass of milk, or however that story goes. You give an inch, they take a mile. Corporations are not going to voluntarily stop exploiting us because they are legally obligated to maximize profit. That is why they exist. And they're going to continue maximizing profit despite how much damage it does to all of us and to our communities and to our lives, as long as the money keeps flowing. So we need to be organizing against that. We need to be getting better people in office. As we discussed, Michigan's race last night was a fantastic first step. You want to talk about big money, $65 million from a super PAC, a foreign nation super PAC, went into a Senate primary in the state of Michigan. And then, the gubernatorial next Tuesday in Wisconsin. But we also got to make sure that we're talking to our friends, we're talking to our family. I had a great time coming and presenting to all of you, but I'm just some random dude. If I go and talk to your cousin, I go and talk to your daughter, I go and talk to your neighbor, they don't know me, they don't give a shit what I have to say. I'm no different than some talking head on, I'm probably less reputable than a talking head on television because that person at least has enough credibility to get on television. But you do. They know you, they trust you, they will take you seriously. I'll use another argument because I see this quite frequently myself. It's anecdotal, of course, but when I'm at the gym, a lot of young white men will come up and ask me questions about stuff. Whether it's helping spot them or I love to wear political shirts just because it's who I am as a person. And some people, I'm in a more conservative community, younger men will come up and say like, hey, I love your shirt. Because a lot of times people just think they're alone. We're never alone. There are progressives everywhere. But they'll come and ask me questions, and because we have similar interests, we both like coming to the gym to work out. We can talk about fantasy football or video games. We are able to see each other in the opposite's shoes, see life through the other's eyes and perspective, because they're very similar perspectives. It can be hard to do that with people that don't live a similar life to you. Of course, we're going to still try to be empathetic and still try to share our experiences with them to inform them of why we come to certain conclusions. But use the context and use the knowledge and use the friendships that you have built over the years to talk about these issues, to continue advancing these causes, and to eventually win, because we are going to win. Better is possible. In fact, it's inevitable if we work for it. And we will make better possible. We will beat the money by using the strength of the many, and we will put people over profits, but only if we continue to work together towards those collective goals. So that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, William. Thank you, everybody. Give him another hand.